Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for letting me come in and talk with you all today, because I'm kind of the new guy at App Properties. I've been with the company just barely over 6 months, and we're working out of a temporary office in Hinsdale.
So you have to hold it real close.
Thank you, Amy. Been with the company just over 6 months, and we're working out of a temporary office, which is working out real well. But for the first couple of months, I was illegally running my team out of my house in Hinsdale, which I know is in violation of several zoning laws. So it's really cool for me, to come here today and get to know you folks a little bit better. And my goal for today is to share with you some of the ideas and strategies that I've acquired over the course of the last 2,500 transactions. Okay, some of these ideas that I'm going to share with you are mine. Some of them are mine that I stole from some other people, and some of them are other people's ideas that I've twisted a little bit to make mine. And as I share some of these things with you, they're going to appear. Some of them are going to appear contrarian. Some of them are going to appear, against the grain of what you may think is customary or appropriate. But what I'd really ask is really just one thing, is when you hear an idea, instead of making a snap judgment on the idea, be curious about it. So instead of saying, oh, maybe that'll work for him, but that'll never work for me, instead maybe say, how do I get that to work? Maybe I can get it to work out of the box. Maybe I have to bend it a little bit to get it to work for me. But approach it with curiosity, because these things that I'm going to share with you today are the best things that work for me. They work for my team every day, and I know that they will work in every market as well. Now we just need to see if this clicker works. Think I might be too far away? Let me see. Here we are. Okay, the idea for today's talk is the 40-hour work week, and it's something that I talked about a number of years ago when Trisha Roberto was still selling real estate. And it's a talk I had done in the past, so I just kind of updated it for today. It is possible, yes, Amy, it is possible to do this job in 40 hours a week, but some alternate and equally appealing titles for this talk might be how to do the max with the minimum, or how to stretch it. So it's really about time management and about prioritization and just really gaining back, your own time to yourself. I think I might have to stand in the middle somehow. All right, idea number one, closings. By show of hands, I'd like to see who attends closings, and please be honest. Okay, my idea is don't go. Okay, my idea for not going to a closing exists because nothing good can happen to you at a closing. And I'm really serious about that. For example, another way to say that could be, if you think about going to a closing and not going to a closing, there isn't a single thing that would make you better off by not going to a closing. Time saver. Here we go. Tom McKinney. How many transaction sides do you do annually?
I do about
50 transactions annually. What is the average time of a closing? And I'm not talking about proper title either.
I don't know because I don't go.
Okay, so what is the average time of a closing?
It's 2 hours.
2 hours. So what's 50 times 2? That's 100, okay? And you're not even at the closing yet. How long does it take you to get to a closing, on average?
Yeah, usually it's
15 minutes is the proper answer. So 15 minutes to get there, and then 15 minutes to get to where you were. So it's another half an hour. What's 50 times 0.5? 25 hours. It's 125 hours a year that you would waste going to closings. That's 125 hours a year. That's an outrageous waste of time. That could be 125 hours a year. You can be at home watching reruns of The Big Bang Theory. You could be prospecting, or you could just take time off. 125 hours a year is 3 weeks you could be taking off. So don't go, because it's a huge time saver not to go. No forced donations. If you're not at the closing, there's no commissionectomy that's going to occur. It's really that simple. It's a case where, honestly, I have not been asked to contribute at a closing in over 18 years. If you're not in the room, you don't pay. Okay, then does anybody like the idea of not going to closings and want to know how to do it? Show of hands, please. All right, perfect. I'll talk to you on that one. It's a case where you have to notify the client. With both buyers and sellers, Jan, with buyers, you let them know that it's your job to get them to the finish line. And then you ask them, do you know where you're going for the closing? And you tell them you're going to check in with them in about 90 to 120 minutes to verify how things had gone at the closing. And then you activate your post-closing system. With sellers, it's very, very similar. At the point in the transaction where attorney review and home inspection items are about to be resolved, then you should send them an email and follow it up with a phone call as to why they should be getting power of attorney. And it's a case where tell them, you need to get power of attorney, otherwise, you're going to be wasting 3 hours of your life staring at a wall watching people sign their names. No reason to go to a closing. Common objections that someone may have would be, well, my last realtor went to the closing. And then the script for that is, well, in Illinois, there's really only one thing a real estate broker can do at a closing, and that's collect a check. And I'm pretty comfortable using U.S. mail for that. And then they say, well, why aren't you there? I say, there's nothing for me to do there. On the sell side, if something goes wrong at a closing, if a question arises, I'm better equipped to go visit your house, being in a reasonable physical proximity to it, than I am being at the closing table with you all. Okay, next. Next one, Google Voice. Okay, this far and away is what I think everybody in this room should implement immediately. Google Voice, who knows what Google Voice is? Raise your hand, please. Okay, Google Voice is a free service offered by Google that is so powerful in managing your voice communications, there's no reason not to have it. I don't give out my cell phone number. I give out my Google Voice number. I tell people it's my cell phone number because it does ring on my cell phone. By having Google Voice, you can have it on 2 screens in your office. In my office, what we're working on is on the left-hand side, and our Google Voice screen is on the right-hand side. So you can actually do texts with a large keyboard and a large monitor instead of staring at that little screen all day long. So it's really fantastic. The next one is documentation. One of the things that really scares me about using text in residential real estate transactions is liability. I don't know if you guys ever checked, but if a text gets deleted, if you contact your service provider, AT&T can't replicate that text. It is gone forever. So if there's anything there that you may need to defend you in litigation, it's gone. With Google Voice, it's not gone. It's archived. That alone is a reason why you should be considering it. Next benefit is someone else can be texting for you. Like right now, I'm here, hopefully having lunch soon and talking to you folks. Well, I have 2 folks at my office right now responding to my texts, either as me or as themselves responding to a client's text while I'm here doing this. If you don't work as a team, if you work as an individual agent, when you go away on a trip, instead of being obtrusively interrupted by text, you can have whoever's covering for you at the office have all your text and voice communication go to them without having to hand them your cell phone. So it's absolutely huge. Next slide. Just one. There's a free version, which everyone should try, and if you really like it, there's an enterprise version, which is managed as well, and it's only like $20 a month, so it's pretty awesome. Just one. Okay, now this is amazing. I've never shared this publicly before. Before I went to AT, I did talk to the folks at Compass, but I found them to be a soulless entity. And apparently, no one told the CEO, Robert Refkin, that I wasn't interested in meeting with them. So this is an actual Google Voice that came in from Robert Refkin Now imagine this, that your team or the people you work with read this. It goes, hey Bryan, how's it going? This is Robert Refkin, CEO of Compass Mortgage. Just wanted to give you a call and to welcome you aboard. So, I mean, it's kind of funny for us now, but think about it this way. A few minutes ago, I was sharing with you about how, if you get into litigation or you get into a dispute with another agent, the text disappears. This is a funny one that I'll be using for a few more years. So I'm going to get some good mileage out of this, and you can't document it any other way. Okay, next slide, please.
Google Voice?
Pardon me?
Do you think he uses Google Voice?
He should. Next slide. Okay, next one is meeting requests. By show of hands again, who uses meeting requests or meeting invites? Okay, like 10% of the room. This is something that I think you should, and all this stuff I'm sharing with you is free. It doesn't cost you anything. Meeting requests should be used immediately by everyone. For example, one of the things that I don't love about our job is a retail job, and there's an expectation to work a lot of nights and weekends. And if you got to show a house on a Saturday morning, with you want to hurry up and get the hell out of there and back off to your real life. But for your client, for them, it's Saturday. It's breakfast at Tiffany's. They've got all morning. And 10 a.m. to them might be 10:15, might be 10:30, might be something like that. By using meeting requests for everything with your clients, there are huge benefits. Number one, it implies precision. A 10 o'clock appointment is not 10:15 or not 10:30. It's 10 o'clock. If you send someone a meeting request, there's a beginning time and there's an end time to the meeting. So, if it takes you 15 or 20 minutes to show a house, block out 30 minutes, not an hour. It's a complete waste of time not to use it. Also, like on a listing appointment, whenever I compete on a listing, my presumption is that I'm going to be competing with 2 or 3 other agents. And from the time you get that initial call, you want to create unique selling propositions to you so that you distinguish yourself from the other people. The other agents aren't using meeting requests. They're using verbal confirmations. They're using text. It's complete nonsense. And by using a meeting request, there is a presumption that you do business like a business person. If that person works for a large corporation, they're not confirming meetings with text or voice. They're using meeting requests. So this is a real quick one, which I think is an easy one to implement right away. Next slide, please. For about the past 20 years, I've had on my voicemail message, messages left after 5 p.m. will be returned the next day. Okay? And the reason I have that is because I want people who are going to be working with me to know that I am not the Domino's pizza guy. It's not okay to call me at Sunday night at 9:30 to let me know your brochure box needs to be refilled. And by leaving these types of messages, you're establishing a level of professionalism that the other agents aren't doing, and you're protecting your personal life to a certain extent. People say to me, like, in fact, Tom said to me before, he does this on his voicemail now, before he did it, he goes, well, what do people say? What do people say? And honestly, maybe once or twice a year, you get a question or an objection, but it's from another real estate broker. And honestly, I think I don't lose any business at all by having this message on. In fact, I may gain it because you want them to respect you. You don't want them to treat you like a doormat. Okay, prioritize your day. The first thing I do every single day, whether if it's a work day or a weekend, is prioritize the tasks of the day. It's pretty simple, it's pretty fundamental. It's easiest to do with a CRM, and it doesn't matter which one. But here are my tips for doing that. Identify things as number ones, and number ones are things that absolutely positively have to be done right away, before you make your coffee, before the person from across the office needs advice or something. Number ones have to be done right away. Number two, items that are identified by a 2 have to be done that day no matter what. You can't go home unless you do your number 2 items on your list. And then number 3s are items that should be done that day, but if they spill over to the next day, that's okay. Now, in this kind of market, okay, we're in the fourth quarter of the year. Things generally slow down a little bit now. Also, we're in a market that's favoring buyers right now. So we're doing a lot of tasks that are very heavy on us. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes it's the end of the day and you might not feel that productive. What did I do today? But by doing the 1, 2, 3 prioritization method, you'll know that you keep chipping away at the mountain and you do get a sense of productivity. All right, client management. Every Monday, sellers need to be communicated with. Every Monday. And in this type of market, you need to over-communicate. So if you don't have something to say to that seller, you're thinking, oh crap, what do I say to them now? Come up with something. You have to call them on Mondays. I like to do this on Mondays for a number of different reasons. First off, sellers think their houses need to sell over the weekend. And by Mondays, they're dejected. They're depressed that their house hasn't sold. So you're giving them a little bit of love by talking to them on a Monday. The second reason is that if they somehow don't call you back or you don't speak to them live on Monday, there's a pretty good chance you're going to talk to them on Tuesday. In a worst case situation, Wednesday. I designed it that way because I don't want anybody to call me on weekends. And by Wednesday, I'm done with all the sellers. We have, I think we got 42 listings right now. We're done with them by Wednesday. Now, the second picture is Laura Rooney. She's the buyer specialist on my team. She contacts all the buyers on Wednesdays, and we do that strategically. When I was an individual agent, I called buyers on Wednesdays and sellers on Mondays so I can kind of spread out the hump of phone calls throughout the week. But there are other reasons why you want to use Wednesdays as well. Typically, if there are price changes or new listings, you see them early in the week, so you can jump on them on Wednesday. Second reason is if you're contacting them on Wednesday and there's a property which may be a fit for these folks, you can go ahead and schedule the appointment in advance of the weekend, trying to preserve your weekend time a little bit. And you can explain it to them that if it's a hot enough property, if you wait till the weekend, it might be sold. Next slide. All right, next one. This one's huge. This one's a life changer. At Properties has beautiful offices. Some of the places I worked before, not so much. Do your listing presentation in office. Do your listing presentation in office. I do mine in office exclusively, and my closing rate is so high, I don't bother measuring it anymore. It's significantly over 90%, okay? One click, please. There's no drive time. There's no in-home distractions. There's no dogs. There's no kids. There's no UPS guy. My listing presentations, I budget 35 minutes for them. If someone's late, I keep working till they get there. And there's a home court advantage. You weed out a lot of the parasites by doing an office presentation. The people who are calling you looking for a free valuation or free home preparation, when they hear that they have to come into your office to listen to what you have to say, 99% of these people are out, so you just eliminated these people from your life. When you get an offer on a listing, whether if it's in the seller's perspective, whether if it's a good offer or a bad offer, there's always going to be a reaction time, and it's always going to be emotional, and it's always going to be noise, and it's always going to be unproductive. So what I like to do is send a little cover letter with every offer I get to the seller that pretty much says the same thing. It says, we have an offer on your house. I'm not available right now. If I'm available right now, I'm not available right now. It gives them time to react. And also, you have to put in the email, you want them to triple check lines 19 to 30 on the 7.0 contract to verify the inclusions of personal property. I don't buy refrigerators and washers and dryers and all that kind of stuff. I force these people to read this, and when they get the offer, they're sometimes a little excited about the price only and nothing else. And if there's a time 2 or 3 weeks from now that there's a dispute over a 30-year-old swing set, and they want you to contribute toward it, I remind them that at 9:04 on Monday they received this email telling them to check lines 19 to 30. One slide, please. All right, the last one I have is something called Boomerang. And Mike was talking to me earlier about how he gets distracted by email. You ever use Boomerang? Okay, Boomerang is it's an add-in, and it actually works with the email system. And there are huge benefits to Boomerang. You could probably talk for an hour about Boomerang alone. But here's one of the benefits. Let's say Saturday morning, the kids aren't up yet, you're having your first cup of coffee, and there's some communication that you just want to get out of your head and off to a client or someone on your team, but you don't want the ping pong effect of them reacting to it at that time. All that Boomerang does is gives you the option of sending that email at a time of your choosing. And it's so cool because you can set a specific time. Like one of my presets is Monday, 8 a.m. So I just dump a bunch of stuff that goes off at Monday, 8 a.m. You can completely control it. The other thing that it does that's amazing is, let's say you're overwhelmed and you're looking for a way to manage, let's say a roofer needs to get back to you on a home inspection. And you send an email to the roofer on Monday and expect a response by Wednesday. If the roofer doesn't email you back by Wednesday at noon, the email that you sent to the roofer goes back into your inbox on Wednesday to remind you that he didn't respond to you. So it's cheap. It's like, I think it's like $100 a year to get Boomerang, but it's just an absolute time saver. Those are the top time savers that I've developed over time. I hope that there is some level of interest and an even higher level of implementation to these things, because I think they work. Questions? Yes?
All right. So just to touch back on your listing in-office.
Can everybody hear that?
I'll talk loud.
Here,
To
I'll-
touch back
let's
on
just-
your in-office listing presentation, you mentioned quickly that it was a two-step. Can you just go over that? So you have the in-office, and then when do you go to their home to evaluate, to find it out that it doesn't smell like smoke or cat pee, or back to a busy room, things like that?
Okay, kind of the overview on the two-step listing process is the call comes in. I never take that call live, okay? Because I want to create the impression that when they contact me, it's bigger than just one person. And the folks who answer the phone, for me, gather information. What do you think the property's worth? They pull the old MLS sheet, they pull the old realist report, that sort of thing. So in many cases, as a strategic tactic, I'll use some of the information on the old MLS sheet or the realist to beat out the other agents. For example, if it's a red brick colonial, when I call them, I go, so is that the red brick colonial? Oh, geez, do you remember that one? Yeah, I kind of do. So it's that sort of thing. So then I explained to them, I said, it's going to be a two-step process. The step one is I'm going to visit your house like a typical informed buyer would. And I'm going to take some notes. I'll answer some questions if you have them. But this is a pretty quick appointment. It's only going to last about 15 minutes. And then I'll need several business days to work up my thoughts, or I'm going to create two reports for you. Number one, I'm going to show you what the custom marketing program looks like in the event that we work together. And number two, I'm going to show you what the true market value of your house is in today's market. The second meeting takes place in my office. Most of the people I meet with need about 30 or 35 minutes for that appointment. How does that sound to you?
How often do you get someone who objects, who wants you to do it in their house?
Mike, honestly, how often do I get someone who objects? Almost never. In fact, the last time someone should have objected but didn't, it was a couple in Hinsdale. He was 88 and she was 86. And I went over there and I felt guilty. But I didn't know they were that old when I was talking to them, but almost never. And really, the only time that I'll deviate from that is if someone is really old or they're really sick. Otherwise, forget it. And it's interesting is because there have been times over the past several years where maybe I'll deviate from that a bit. But if you look at my closing rate in home versus in office, the difference is it's incomparable. I'll get you after that, Jen.
My Google Voice, you talk about that you give that out as your cell phone number. So how would you suggest somebody that I've got an established number already, I've got it on all of my marketing pieces, how would I transition to Google Voice?
Okay, I said that there are two types of Google Voice. There's free and there's enterprise. Enterprise is the one you have to pay for. It's only $20. Enterprise is better because it's managed. If you really, what I would recommend doing first is just get the free one and mess around with it. It's going to be a different number on the free one just to see if you like it. You're going to love it. Okay. Then you can port your current cell phone number over to Google Voice and you're done.
So if I were to do enterprise immediately, I could use my cell phone number?
100% yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Bryan, could you describe for the group a little bit of the roles and responsibilities of your team? In other words, you're doing 70, 80 million a year. I think everybody would like to hear. I think there's a misconception that we have to just hire buyer's agents to increase productivity. So could you just give a little picture of how you're built, what those roles and responsibilities look like, and how you create those efficiencies?
Yeah, and I've messed around with this a lot. I started out as an individual agent, then I had one assistant, and now we have 6 people on our team. So we have 1 buyer specialist, we have 1 transaction coordinator, we have 1 marketing coordinator, we have a project manager, and we have a weekend admin. So the marketing coordinator, 40 hours a week, she's an employee of mine, she does marketing. The transaction coordinator is actually a paralegal, which turned out to be a pretty amazing hire because paralegals are mistreated largely. They're worked to death. Allie's my transaction coordinator, and I stole her from a law firm in the city, and I told her at any given time we have about a dozen deals in the pipeline. How many open cases do you have at the law firm? Her answer floored me. She said 200. So it was a case where she used to have 13-hour days where the lawyers were texting her at night asking her to do things, and now it's 8:30 to 5. So she's my transaction coordinator. My wife Sue is our project manager. She's a CPA, and she kind of just, if I have a new idea, for example, if someone presented Google Voice to me today and I hadn't heard of it before, I would say, hey Sue, tear this apart. And she tears it apart and presents it to the team the next day when we have huddles every morning at 9:15. I have a weekend admin person. She only works weekends. She comes in Saturdays and Sundays, and her job is the Band-Aid between Friday and Monday.
So I wanted to just prompt you to talk about how you handle unrepresented buyers.
Oh, God.
This is controversial, but smart.
All right, here we go. I don't know if we want this one recorded. And this is something that I'm very passionate about this, and it's very unique to me, and I have kind of an eccentric personality, but I just feel abused by these people who come out and say they don't need representation. And I don't know any other business where people in the business willingly lay down when someone outside of the business asks them to do something that denigrates them to that extent. So my first line of defense is on 100% of the listing agreements that I have an addendum, which basically says the seller is instructing me to disallow showings unless the buyer is accompanied by an Illinois licensed real estate broker. So that takes away, it's a universal application. So no one can say I picked on them because they have red hair or anything else. It's universal and it's across the line. And then I think it's incumbent upon us as an industry not to let these people steamroll us just because they think they're wanting to save the commission when they're not entitled to the commission to any extent. That's the essence. Do you want me to go a little further with that?
Yeah, talk about how you get your sellers to buy into it.
Well, I explained to them, like, you know, why did you hire me? And they usually say something pretty nice. And I say, okay, I'm presuming that this house is your most valuable asset in the world, and there's a certain level of safety that you want me to manage as part of this marketing process, right? And they say yes. And I say, okay, you have the option of allowing or disallowing unrepresented buyers through your house. And if the story goes on a little further, I tell them something, and I've been doing this for at least 10 years. I tell them a story about a time where I had an unrepresented buyer contact me. It was before I had this agreement in place, and I told them that I didn't want to show them the house. I contacted the seller because I thought they were going to be the type of people who would knock on the door and complain that I wasn't doing my job. So I said, listen, I've got these people. I don't know much about them. They don't want to tell me anything about them. They won't answer questions about being financially qualified, but they want to see your house, and if they choose to buy it, they're not going to be represented by a real estate broker. And then of course, the sellers go, okay, so why don't we just do it this one time? I said, okay, great. So of course, the knuckleheads wanted an appointment on 5:30 on a Saturday. They showed up with 6 people in a minivan. I don't know who was the buyer. I don't know who wasn't the buyer. They started running around through the house. And then when I thought I was done at 6:15 on Saturday night, the seller contacted me. How'd it go? How'd it go? I said, I don't know. And they said, well, weren't you there? And I said, yeah, I was, but nobody made eye contact. I don't know their last name. And I said, I hope you increased your insurance policy on the house, 'cause I don't know if they stole anything when they were there. And at that moment, I swore that was the last time I was going to allow that to happen.
So if they're unrepresented and they still insist on seeing the house, do you then pass it on to your buyer's agent, get them pre-qualified, and then allow the showing?
It's case by case, because generally if it's a buyer lead like that, Laura would handle that lead from the beginning anyway. But I let those people know that they don't have to choose us.
That's more the point.
Yeah, they don't have to choose us. There's, I don't know, 30,000 licensees in Illinois. Pick one of them.
Thank you. My question for you is, how do you keep yourself organized with managing all of these people? And do you have like systems? Do you use a certain type of CRM? Do you?
Yeah, that's another 90 minutes right there. But kind of the net is you have to have a CRM. I use Top Producer only because I've been using it for forever. There are newer ones out that are better, like RealVolve is a pretty good one if you don't have one now. But I think for us, and I think the key is kind of aligning everybody's goals. We call it a huddle. We have it every morning at 9:15. We try to keep it to about 15 minutes, and it keeps everybody kind of psyched up and our goals aligned. Laura, I'm going to ask you to talk about this. What do you think about the organization and the huddle? Laura is the exclusive buyer specialist on my team.
I've been in the business for about 19 years. I've been his buyer's agent for about 10 years, so I feel like I've been in the business for 10 years. It's been life-changing, the systems, and for me to be in the business for 10 years before I met him without Top Producer, I don't know how I did it. If you have more than 5 contacts, how do you keep track if it's not, in a system?
Well, let's talk about this for a second. When I hired Laura a decade ago, I hired her because she was a good person with a good heart who has likability that's a 15 on a 10 scale. Without giving any numbers, using percentages, tell the group what happened to your income over the past decade.
Without giving them, okay, well, yes, it's quadrupled at least?
It's quintupled.
Okay.
Yeah. It actually, and it's all about systems, and it's a situation where you just have to prioritize your day and just plow through the one every day. Do your ones, do your twos, do your threes. It's just like working out. It's just like being on a diet. You just have to pick a plan that works. There are a million of them, and just work it.
Bryan, I was wondering if you attend all your showings on your listings of your properties.
100% no. I think that's another waste of time. I do it if I have to, but I'll never do it because I don't want to. I'll explain to sellers, and I'll just give you one of the answers because I've got about 6 of them. I'll say, listen, let's flip this around. If I was working for you as a buyer's broker, and you hired me because on some level we know each other, we like each other, and we trust each other. And if I'm showing you a house, and I think that house is fantastic for you, and we're there alone, I'm going to jump up and down and tell you how fantastic this property is. However, if there's an adversary in the room, a broker representing the seller, that is going to spoil the mood and spoil the communication. And we don't want to do that to another buyer who's coming through. There are cases where I'll tell them, if it's an agent who is hyper-local, who knows the local market, and who is competent and expert, we don't want to be within a mile of your house in the showing. However, if the broker is in the knucklehead category, and I think we all know what that means, I said, we may want to be there to guide the conversation and or just be there to make sure the back door isn't left unlocked, because those are the people who are going to leave it locked every single time. Does that answer your question?
Who goes? If you do go, who goes?
Who goes?
Yes.
It depends. It depends on who's up. For example, a real life example. There's a property I'm marketing now. It's 3.2 million. We're having a third showing on Saturday, and the broker is a brand new broker representing herself and her husband. I'll be there for that one. Okay? If it's a first showing, where to me a first showing simply answers the question, does the square peg fit in the square hole? Well, I don't need to be there for that. So it's case by case.
Even on a $3 million house?
Pardon me?
Even on a $3 million
Yeah, everyone on my team's a broker, so it's just security. For example, let me give it to you this way. If let's say there's some relo buyer looking at 12 houses in a day, they're not listening to you spew off all this information that you think is valuable. No one's listening to you for a first showing like that. Open houses, we do them on a limited basis. Our rule on open houses is we'll do them on vacant houses only. Builder, new construction houses, or houses that people have moved out of, because we don't know who's coming in an open house. So there's a certain level of security risk. There's a certain level of anonymity people have when they walk through open houses. So we tend not to like them.
Can you tell us a little bit about your systems for staying in front of your clients? A lot of this conversation is about, active clientele, but what system do you have in place to stay in touch with past clients, your sphere of influence, to kind of continue the momentum coming in?
We have a lot. Yikes! We have a lot of different systems for that, but it kind of ebbs and flows every couple of years, Amy. But what we're focusing now is event-based. We're doing a lot of event-based things. For example. We think it's best to have events about 3 times a year. And one of the ones we like a lot is a pie event. Okay, a pie event where you give away a pie the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, but we do it a little differently. For example, we seek out really cool pies. For example, our average price point is over $1 million, so I think it's inappropriate to use the Costco pies for, that type of buyer. I think it's kind of embarrassing, actually. But right now, we're seeking out pies from a celebrity chef in the city. So it's going to be kind of cool when we present this to our clients. As I've come to learn recently, if you do this type of event, the invitation is more important than the event. The one piece of information that no one will ever object to is an invitation, even if they never show up. Last year, and I'll take credit for it now, but it was kind of a serendipitous finding. We did an event for the top 50 referral sources at my house, okay? And frankly, I did it at my house because I wanted to contain the cost a little bit. We had a chef come by and do, this amazing dinner for 50. And then we had this Elton John impersonator come to the house, and the guy was awesome. I mean, he had in his contract, he had to have a private room where he can change his outfit twice, and all this kind of stuff. And there was only one rule at the event: is we can't talk about real estate. I don't want to hear about your neighbor's house. It gives me a headache to think about that. Just come here, drink some pretty good wine, eat some good food, listen to music. Well, the Elton John impersonator was supposed to do 2 75-minute sets and be gone by 10:30. The clients were putting 50s and 100s on the piano. They were there till 1:30. I don't know if I've ever stayed awake that late before. So it was really, really an amazing event. So it's primarily events that we're working on right now. We just did a movie event. We did the premiere of Toy Story 4, and we had around 300 people show up for that. And it was a pretty awesome event because they were in and out in 2 hours. It was family specific, and it didn't cost as much as it appears. And one of the little, and this is events could be something, could be a whole other session, but one of the little tweaks that we've done, and we just started doing this last year, is when we send out the invitation, we do the invitation using a Google form. And the reason we use a Google form, as opposed to something beautiful like an Evite, is when they fill it out, it auto-populates a spreadsheet, so we know who's coming, who's not coming, what kind of pie they have, that sort of thing. But the change that we made to it recently is that we said, who's the next person who's considering the purchase of a house? And at this summer's Toy Story 4 event, we got 5 referrals out of the box, which, at the $1 million price point level, it doesn't take 5 referrals to pay for the event. So events are huge.
Do you take days off?
I was supposed to take today off, but yeah, I do. I take blocks of time. I like blocks of time rather than whole days off. Actually last night I just got back from Napa. I was in Napa for 4 days, and I was largely disconnected, barring some malicious email hacking that was going on in my account. The weekend before that, I was in Denver for an event, and 3 weeks ago I was in Italy. So yeah, in fact, not only do I take days off, but Laura, how long are you going? Was it 10 days? 10 days. First time in a long time, and did you miss any business? Did you lose out on anything?
It was wonderful to have him and the team back home. I saw a few emails going back and forth between them. I didn't chime in. I was able to completely check out. It was rejuvenating. It was wonderful.
So yeah, it's a short answer.
How many days off a year?
I've never calculated, but I kind of, I just do whatever I like. So this fall, Bears games. I'm not interested in talking to anybody during, a Bears game. It's not going to happen.
So I seem to remember you saying when
Uh-oh.
someone called and asks, can I see a property? Your response was, I assume you're not working with a realtor, or you wouldn't. You're not. I assume you don't have a realtor, you wouldn't be calling me, correct?
Correct.
And so as I'm seeing, like you are, a lot of these people who are just automatically assuming that there's no representation, I'm just curious as to what your dialogue is, or what kind of, did you have anybody sign anything as you're showing them the property?
Yeah, and I'll, this is something that's ongoing and needs to be developed further. In fact, I'll tell you about one recently where I kind of got burnt. It was my listing, and some guy called me, and I said, I presume you don't have an agent representing you, or you wouldn't be contacting me directly, correct? And he goes, no, I don't. And so I showed him the house. It was $1.4 million, and turned out he's a lawyer. And he answered my question accurately and honestly. He didn't have anyone representing him. And then I did some follow-up with him, blah, blah, blah. Came time to sign the buyer agency agreement. And he goes, well, I didn't have anyone representing me, but now I do, and it's not you. So I need to go further with that.
I know. So I like that form that you're talking about, or your addition to
Yeah,
the.
but the reality is, I mean, there has to be ongoing efforts to prevent these types of things from occurring. You can't just do nothing.
Do you do dual agency?
Hang on.
Do you do dual agency?
About 20% of our transactions are dual agency, so yes.
Do you do Zillow leads? Do you buy Zillow leads, or where is most of your business coming from?
I would rather push a broom at McDonald's than pay Zillow for anything. In fact, it's my life's mission to drain Zillow for everything that they're worth. For example, we have a very pointed system for generating Zillow reviews, and we use them on our listing presentations. There was a time where on maybe my third or fourth image that appeared on Zillow, I had a slide that says contact exclusive listing agent Bryan Bomba on there, but the Zillow police, kind of caught me a few times. But no, no. I think Zillow's in business to put us out of business, so I won't spend $1 with Zillow.
Do you have a standard closing gift? So we obsess a lot about closing gifts for every client, and it's probably a big waste of time obsessing about it. Do you have a standard gift you give?
No, and it's a case where if I'm going to give any kind of gift to a client, it has to have shelf life. Okay, I just got an email from a client last night who owns a coffee shop, and he's like, wouldn't this be a great closing gift? I'm like, yeah, for the 15 minutes it's in their kitchen, but it has to have longevity. So I don't give out a lot of gifts. I'm not that kind of gift, but what we do is we like to combine our gifts with things that I think have a little bit more staying power. For example, one of the ones we've used in the past is we had some private labeled hot sauce. We had our own hot sauce. I ordered a pallet of hot sauce, 1,000 bottles, and we delivered them to all our clients. And what was cool about it was less than $4 per unit. And how do you give something to someone who lives in $1 million or $2 million house for $4 that has value and has shelf life, 9 months, 12 months, something like that? In fact, it was kind of funny. There's a real prominent local family we work for who we gave him a bottle of hot sauce, and he actually brought it up to his weekend home in St. Joseph's, Michigan. And he goes, we left our hot sauce up in St. Joe. How do we get another bottle? And this guy lived in a $3 million house. I said, well, all you have to do is buy another house, and I can give you a bottle of hot sauce. So hot sauce that's a really good one. Recently, there's a brand of socks called Bombas, which happens to be my last name, so I couldn't pass that one up. So last year, 2018, for Valentine's Day, we bought just under 1,000 pair and sent them to our clients, the husband and wife only. And what's kind of cool about it is if you buy 1,000 pair, they donate 1,000 pair to a homeless shelter as well. So that was a really cool one. But my key, to answer your question indirectly, I guess, is shelf life. It really has to be shelf life or forget it. Is that it? I guess I'll have my lunch now. Thank you.